let's continue with the show. And next up, it is finally time for our MLR preview show. Big opening weekend coming up. And we went to one of the men in the know, one of the godfathers of rugby media in America, the one and only Matt McCarthy.
Yeah, we wanted to do this season preview with, let's be honest, one of the specialists in the world of rugby media here in the USA. It is none other than Rugby Wrap-Up's Matt McCarthy. Matt, thank you for coming on. How are you doing? Are you MLR ready or what?
Well, thanks for having me. I'm great. And yeah, I'm ready, baby. I'm ready. Let's get going.
Well, let's get into it because we got you on the show for a very big reason, and that's obviously previewing this Major League Rugby season ahead. There's 6 in the East, 5 in the West. We're going to be cliche in saying this, and Matt, obviously, I've came on your show, the Rugby Wrap-Up, and said exactly the same sentence, and I said, this will be the most competitive season yet.
Absolutely. And we spoke about this. Dallas going down, unfortunate, but those players are spread throughout the league, and that was a good Dallas team. So 11 teams, yeah, a little bit of attrition. We started with 7, though, guys. Remember that. We're at 11. We started with 7, so we're okay, and the teams are better for it.
Love it. Well, look, let's get into it straight away because if we're going to take things, we might as well start in the West because obviously coming from a studio based here in San Diego. San Diego Legion, obviously in there, the Seattle Seawolves, Houston Sabercats, Utah Warriors, and then, of course, Rugby FC LA. That is how they are wanting to be called this season. West is best, Matt. Is that correct or what?
Well, you know, it's deja vu all over again, right? We always say the West is the best. And you had New England win 2 in a row. Prior to that, you had New York sneak one in. So is the West the best? On paper, I think so.
And there's actually, you could say, not 3 new coaches because you got Pote Human, who was head coach, but now kind of takes the whole role at Houston Sabercats. You got Steve Hoyles. He's back. He's with the LA franchise in there as well. And then John Menenti at San Diego Legion. Matt, first and foremost, if you are going to just pick a top and bottom of the West, go ahead and tell me why.
I got to pick Houston as the top. I mean, 14-2. You had a hiccup against a good Dallas team, underestimated by us smart people in the pundit area. But Houston is a tough team. They're deep at every position, and this is a league of attrition, right? Over the course of 16 games. LA's had a very interesting offseason. Seattle is Seattle. I mean, they're getting players back from injury, and they're a big team, right? And they fortified that front row a little bit. They had problems with that last year. The 2 Malcolms went down in about an hour, right, with injuries, unfortunate injuries. And I think they learned their lesson there. San Diego, Alex, you know more about San Diego than I do, certainly, as a player coach of San Diego. Man, Utah, Will, you and I were talking about Utah. Utah is a dark place. There's no easy game. There's no easy game. And until we start playing them, everything that we say is probably not going to happen.
Yeah, you got out of that question very well.
That was politician-esque, man.
You didn't give me... So you think maybe Houston at the top?
Houston top, Houston on the top, and Utah last.
Corbs, go on, you step in here. And
you want me to predict the West?
I want you to have a look at the West. And I know you're going to put San Diego at the top, but realistically as well, everything's in there. Talk to me your feelings.
We should all have to drink anytime he says San Diego.
Honestly, it's a tough one. I'd like to say San Diego top. I think you've got to be realistic too. How do you look past Seattle and Houston on what the performances they had last year? That probably bumps LA down for me. And actually seeing Utah play on the weekend.
You saw the weekend.
They were impressive, mate. The new recruits, especially the foreigners, a very, very strong outing. They're a different outfit and they know it. And I think it will be interesting where they end up. But I'm just going to put my pundit hat on. If I was going to pick your favorite, I'd say Seattle. I think they travel more consistent. And then at the bottom, I would go LA purely. And I think San Diego will be swinging for it. But I think as a pundit, you got to look at percentages and favorites, and I prefer underdog status as well.
Guys, I'm going to bring you over towards the East because obviously the East very much, Matt, that was your realm, still is your realm, you could say. Now, again, East, When I think of Anthem, you always thought of them maybe at the bottom, but they have really recruited well. And I feel, again, I look at Chicago, recruited well. New Orleans, Danny Lee going from San Diego to, I think he's got a great squad he's put together. The Free Jacks, can they go 3P? And then Miami, they've got that South American sizzle. Look, again, I'm going to put you on the spot. Who's your top? Who's your bottom in the East, you reckon?
This pains me to say it as a New Yorker, but I got to go with the team from Boston. I got to go with Quincy, Massachusetts, New England Free Jacks as the top in the East. Chicago's breathing right down their necks. Chicago's got a good roster, a very good roster, and they've got competition at positions too, which is always good if you're a coach, not necessarily a player, but that's a good thing, especially over this long season. Washington's a gamble.
DC, I know. No, I didn't even mention them. Like, where you never know what you're going to get from an Old Glory team.
Right. They're going with the continuity thing. Spoke to Simon Frost last week on the show, and he was like, "Yeah, we're all familiar with each other. We brought in some key additions in the back line because maybe our rugby IQ for the American players, although they're very athletic, wasn't there in terms of the growth that they need." And now they got some guys from overseas in that back line. You brought in Jason Emery, which is a great pickup on and off the pitch in the clubhouse. Great guy. He can also slot in a 10 when he at need be. He did it with New York seamlessly. But, not scrimmaging in the offseason, not having an exhibition match kind of worries me about Old Glory. They're going down to Miami. So they practice indoors for the most part. They do train outside sometimes, but at least if they're playing in Miami, they're not going to be freezing like they would be in New England.
So again,
right. So,
but again, you're missing the point here. Who's on top? Who's at bottom?
All right, New England's on top, and I'm going to go crazy here. I think that the Anthem has a shot to unseat Miami.
Yeah.
And maybe Miami might be the bottom
struggle.
Team.
I'm going to make it even bigger call. I think Anthem make the playoffs.
Oh,
I think that don't sleep on them.
Not at all.
If you
look strength and depth, though.
Strength and depth is probably one of the big question marks. But you look at, they've added some hardware into that team. A number of Eagles moved in there. Sam Goller, Alex Morn. There's some pieces moving in there. They already had some good foreigners as well, like Joe Akapatoa and guys like that. But then you also got to remember the environment. They're well resourced with the deal they have. They have probably more coaches than any other team in the MLR. They have,
Kuka Cavaleri's gone there.
Kuka Cavalier coming from Dallas, who is one of the standout coaches, to add to the existing coaching staff, not to replace anyone. So I have a feeling Anthem are going to be a lot more competitive than maybe some people are giving them credit for. The East, to me, pretty stacked as well. I think Free Jacks probably, but there's something in my head saying Chicago might have it this year. And then if I'm going bottom, it's probably Miami or Old Glory. It's a toss cross between those two. I think if you got to remember, Miami last year were year one.
Yeah.
Year one. And we know you're starting from scratch. The fact they were even competitive is actually pretty impressive. So I do think you're going to see a considerable uptick on that they're a year two side. Where them and Old Glory fall is probably, a coin toss for me.
Well, look, the East looks as good as the West, then you could say.